Hi and welcome to Giggles and Yarn, my crochet channel. This is Nelly from South Africa. Welkom by Giggles en Yarn. Bienvenue à tutti chacun. This super cute wiggly worm doorstop draft blocker cum draft stopper is much more than just a draft eliminator. It is also effective for preventing those little mice, frogs and snakes from coming in under the door. If you live in Africa, like I do, you will know that this can be an ongoing problem. They even manage to come in and hibernate in the house for the winter time. But since I've been using a crochet door stopper as a draft blocker, I found that it is also an inhibitor or preventer for these little creatures to come in and hop around and scratch and wiggle all over the house, because once they're inside it's very difficult to get them out. And you know, with these babies in your house, the mommy will be somewhere. That's always the thought. Where's the mommy? Because the mommy might come and look for them. So it is for this reason that I recommend this crochet door stopper as something which is much more than just a draft eliminator. It is super easy to make and works up very quickly. So today is the day to make your wiggly worm doorstop draft blocker. For this wiggly worm door stopper cum draft eliminator draft stopper, I followed the exact pattern of the crochet crowd. All I did different, well, it's not really different, I just chose my colors so that here I made segments. I didn't intentionally do it. I just felt like changing colors here and there just like he did, and then it just ended up coming out like, hey, segments. And then what I did is I optimized that idea and I squeezed the stuffing so that it actually made the segments fat and then these darker parts thin, and so it came out real cute. And all I did is I added this neck and little head with face and this cute little hat, and voila, beautiful door stopper. Thank you, Crochet Crowd. The link is in the description box below. So now we're going to make this neck of our wiggly worm. So now we're going to make the neck for the wiggly worm door stopper. So let's start with a magic ring. You'll see I'm again doubling up my yarn 3 strands, and I'm using the same crochet hook as for the door stopper. So let's begin with a magic ring. I have a magic ring tutorial on my channel and I'll post the link in the description box for you. So now I'm going to make one chain. This chain is still part of my magic ring. So there's my completed magic ring. Now I'm going to make 4 single crochets into the magic ring. Normally for a ball or so one starts with 6, but because this is a small neck, I want to start with 4. One, 2, 3, 4. And now let's close the magic ring by pulling it tight, and then into this first chain we'll make a slip stitch to close off round 1. There we go, that's round 1. Now let's increase in each stitch around. So guess what, I'm going to use a stitch marker because it just makes it easier if I do not have to count my stitches, and if I do not have to backtrack, and if I do not have to wonder, am I really in the right place? I know 4 stitches is not a lot. We're going to do increases, etc. enough. I never ever need to count. It's going to just all be so much faster. So I'm going to pull up a loop and get another color yarn to begin my stitch marker. So I just took an offcut from my offcut pile. I never throw away my tail end offcuts. So I just took a piece of yarn from there, and then I insert it into the last stitch of the previous row and pull it through with your hook. Then for me, I tie it. I know many people don't tie their stitch marker, but I tie it lightly because sometimes I jerk it out by accident or something. So I just tie it on lightly, and then I'll carry it forward every time I make a row. So let's begin row 2. We're going to make an increase in each stitch around by making 2 single crochets. So go directly into your first stitch. There, this is not the first stitch there. Remember to go through all 6 loops because you've got 3 strands, and catch all 6 loops, and then make 2 single crochets into the first stitch and in each stitch around, and I'll meet you at the stitch marker. So your last increase will be right on top of the stitch marker here. This is your last stitch where you're going to have to work every time you end your row on top of the stitch marker, and make 2 single crochets into that stitch. I crochet loosely because otherwise it's so hard to get my hook in. So now I have a total of 8 stitches for the end of row 2. So let's continue on to the next row. First, we bring our stitch marker forward. So I'm putting my hook into the top of the last stitch of row 2, and then I bring my stitch marker up. I've already made my stitch marker undone. I'm not exactly a wild crochet. There, no, it's still there. Okay, so I bring it all the way through, and this is what you're going to do each time. At the end of a row, into the last stitch, you'll pull up your stitch marker, and so that it continues on into every row, and then you know where you must make your last stitch every time. So now we're going to make row 3. So for row 3 we want a rapid increase because we want this a ball, but it must be kind of flat because it's for our neck. It's not a round ball, it's round but it's flat. So we're just going to make a rapid increase by once again making increases in each stitch. So it's 2 single crochets in each stitch around, and then I'll meet you at the stitch marker. Go all the way around, 2 single crochets in each stitch. So now I've made my last increase in on top of the stitch marker, and we've basically doubled our stitches. So row 3 has a total of 16 stitches. So for row 4 we're just going to make 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So 1 single crochet in first stitch, 1 single crochet in the second stitch, and you can just continue making a single crochet in each of the stitches all around, and I'll meet you at the stitch marker. So I've reached the end of row 4 and we still have just the 16 stitches, but you can see it's starting to pull into a little bowl, and that's what we want. And your little bowl will be like this. You will work on the outside of your bowl with the first beginning yarn of your magic ring on the inside, and that's how you work with your rounds. So for row 5 we're going to start our decreases. We'll just do exactly the opposite as what we've done so far, but only with decreases. So we started small, we increased, now we rapidly decreasing exactly in the same manner as we've worked our increases. We're just now working 2 stitches together all the way. So what we're going to do here is make decreases in every 2 stitches. So decrease just means we work 2 stitches together. So insert your hook into the first stitch, pull up a loop, and insert your hook into the second stitch and pull up a loop. Now with 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops at once. And this is exactly what you're going to do all the way around. Pull up a loop from the first stitch and pull up a loop from the second stitch, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. And we'll just continue exactly like this all the way around. Pull through all 3. Let's make one more decrease together. Pull up a loop in the first stitch and pull up a loop from the second, and yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches. That's your decrease, and continue all the way until the stitch marker. So now I'm nearing the end of this row and I'm making my last decrease. So insert my hook, pull up a loop, and onto the stitch marker, the last stitch, I insert my hook, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through all 3, and there we reach the end of the row. So now for this next row we're going to do exactly the same. It's also a rapid decrease row, and I've pulled up my yarn, my tail, and now we'll do the same. We'll insert, pull up a loop, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and pull through all 3. So now we only have 4 to do. Previous round we had 8, now we have 4, and continue decreasing until the end of the row, and I'll meet you at the stitch marker. So now I've finished the 4 decreases of our previous row, and I've reached the stitch marker and I landed on my stitch marker for my last decrease. So pull up a long loop now, because now we're going to stuff our little neck. So I'm just using some of my old tail offcuts, and often I find that I need to cut them smaller because some of them are really tall, long tails. So I'm just randomly cutting through my tail offcuts to make them more easy to work with. I never ever throw away my tail offcuts because I stuff with them. So now into this little space of our neck, we're just going to put in some of our yarn tails offcuts. You can also use any kind of stuffing that you like. You don't have to use tail offcuts. you can use anything to stuff with. I mean anything, this little fluff or but if it's a toy for a child, it must be something that cannot burn. So always be careful about that. Keep your loop out the way so that you don't stuff it into the neck. So we don't want to need to stuff it a lot because it is a neck that we want to go flat like this. We're going to squeeze it flat. We don't want it round like a face or a head. So now we've finished stuffing the neck, and now we're just going to end off. So pull your work tight, so all the decreases are tight, and then we can basically just end off with a chain. Make a chain, cut your yarn and pull through. Just pull it tight and take your yarn needle and just weave in that. But it's important that you go across where it seems that there's still a little bit of a gap there. Look here. So just go across in there and pull it tight. And that's sufficient for this neck, because we're going to sew it in between the head and the body, and it will just be a neck like that. You can see it on the Wiggly worm. That is our neck that we've just made in between the head and the body of our Wiggly worm doorstop draft stopper eliminator. Well done. So I'll just work away my tail and just like weave it, like go right through the stuffing and just pull it through. If I'm not happy, I'll still go one more time in a different direction. It's up to you, but I think it will be right because we're sewing it in between our head and our body. Then you can just cut that off, push your stuffing a little bit in, and then I'm gonna just cut my stitch marker and just push that in for part of the stuffing. So basically this is our neck. Like I said, it's gonna come flat. This is the principle that you can use for the future if you're just kind of making a neck and so on, so and you can just adjust the size. So there's our Wiggly worm doorstop draft stopper eliminator, amphibian friend preventer doorstopper neck. Thank you for working along with me. Thank you for crocheting with me. Bye. To make the head of the crochet Wiggly worm doorstop draft blocker, I used a pattern where someone made mini balls. She said how to make a ball. So I'll insert that link in the description box below. The mouth of the Wiggly worm I got from the same pattern that I got for the pattern of the hat. So the hat pattern wasn't actually a hat pattern. I was busy making alien slugs, and then I experimented on making smaller and smaller and smaller little alien slugs with a smaller yarn, a thinner yarn and smaller crochet hook. And as I got to the end of one of the smaller ones, I said to myself, wow, this looks pretty for a hat, because it's got this little scallop on the outside, so it widens out on the outside and then it's got the scallop. And then I said to myself, oh, this is a hat. So I then just added a lot of flowers and some leaves. And for those, or I'll put links to the actual crochet tutorials for them in the description box below, as well as, of course, the link to the crochet tutorial for the alien slugs. And the mouth, like I said, is the mouth that she uses, the mouth that she makes in that crochet tutorial for the alien slugs is the easiest mouth that I've ever come across for amigurumi, and so I hope you enjoy those patterns. Until next time, tot volgende keer. A bientôt!